Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with AmericanScouser.com. I said or tea and raise it, but it is actually coffee. But we always kind of like dance along and jive to the music as it goes. But this Monday, I noticed there was definitely more movement than normal. We got like a trio this morning. Matusz, the Polish Prince, is with us. Matusz, what's happening, man?
Oh, not much. Happy to be back here and excited for the week.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
Monday
And
indeed.
Trevor, my morning coffee partner in crime, is with us as always. What's up, man?
Long weekend, but yeah, happy to be here, and got a smile on my face from yesterday.
Yes. And Alan's with us as always, first thing in the morning. Good morning, Alan. Yes, definitely a whole different freaking Monday feeling. I mean, it's still freaking Monday, I guess, but still, even after yesterday, the rest of the day goes a lot better when the boys win, especially a game like that. So we'll get to the game a little bit. I want to get your guys' take on it, but we'll probably analyze the how of it tonight with this guy right here, who was a celebrity at Philly, I hear. But we'll hear a lot more about that, I'm sure. It's always good to hear. But Gally says, "Get at it, boys." Yeah, it is a great weekend to cover. There was actually a lot of good games. And I'm actually amazed that our game actually kind of like even overshadowed the Classico that everybody nonstop talks about. Maybe we're not in that neck of the woods, so we didn't hear as much about it. But let's take care of the headlines first. There's a couple that get really freaking old, but I guess let's do it anyway. First off, I know this is your favorite topic, Trevor, so we'll go with you. Ronaldo is not happy again. He was subbed as United were chasing a goal. I kind of thought that was going to be a good game, and it did turn out to be one, actually, despite not having goals. What do you say about your boy? He's just not happy. Him, Mbappe, these guys are never happy.
Yeah, you can't make him happy in any way. You start him, he's pissed off. When you take him off, you bring him on, he's pissed off with who he came on for because he wanted to come in for somebody that would set him up better, but he came on for that person. There's always something. There's never any pleasing this man at this stage of his career. And that picture that you just showed just completely sums up his time with United at this point, just doing the old Charlie Brown sulking, walking back down to the bench. You can hear that ding, 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 ding. It just rings.
Matusz, what do you say about this dude, man? I mean, I'm sure he's just banging his head every morning when he wakes up 5 times about that decision he made to come back, which I'm sure, United people are banging their head at least 3 times for the same decision that they made. But what do you say to this? I mean, this is when some people should just go away and retire so you remember him good. As a United fan, it has to be tricky seeing him in the situation. It's not as bad as, I guess, watching Gerard at Galaxy, but still, like, at sometimes you were like, dude, let's just remember it as you were and not these times.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't have a way to know how it feels to be a professional athlete at the caliber of his, because he will go down as arguably one of the greatest to ever play the game. And so I feel like for him, maybe there's so much that he feels like he can still do and that he's trying to force himself to be the player that he used to be, not realizing, like you're saying, that yes, maybe it's time to understand that you're no longer that player. You need to change. You need to do something different.
Alan is on a roll this morning saying Ronaldo should stick to banging his wife, not his manager. I didn't realize he was banging Ten Hag, but Alan has some insight.
Technically doesn't have a wife, by the way. It's his I don't think they're legally married. I believe it's just his partner, his girlfriend.
Really?
Uh-huh.
See, this is the kind of news that Polish Prince brings to the table. Right?
Report.
Yeah, just call me TMZ. Yeah, that's my.
Oh, that was next. The Polish TMZ. Go ahead.
And I feel like part of it too. I think he's just really frustrated that they're not in the Champions League this year. So not being able to play in the Champions League and then not playing in some of the games in the Premier League or getting subbed off or coming on, it just feels like it's damaging to him in his head. So maybe it's one of those things where I feel like maybe a January move would best suit him, because I know he came in and he wanted to play Champions League, and unfortunately last year they finished in a spot where that wasn't possible, and it's kind of all dominoed and snowballed into what it is now. And I don't think anything's going to help unless he finds a move, but I don't know how many clubs are that crazy or that desperate. Yeah. So
I mean, we were talking about this. I think, the World Cup, he has to be just have a bunch of voodoo dolls and hope that, the major striker gets injured so that he can just get that spots instead. And somebody will be that desperate.
I mean, that's.
Yeah, let's do this. Portuguese. Jota is hurt. It's the calf. We don't know the extent, but one thinks, Trevor, that, we're talking about this in the pre-match fist fight with Matush over here as well. I mean, there was one thing about going down. Even my wife was like, is he just trying to kill time when he went down? And I was like, man, I don't know. You don't get medical attention if that happens. You get up, you mission accomplished, because if you get the medicals done, you have to come out. Now you're defending with 10 people and stuff like that. And obviously when you get stretchered off, it just means it's not good. You never see somebody stretchered off and then show up the next Saturday.
Yeah, and it was initially when they had that break and you saw him in the background of the right corner of the screen going, okay, they're going to stop the play and have him come down to him. And a bunch of us in the bar were just yelling, just roll off the field. And then when it comes out that he's just still down, and then they're bringing out the stretcher, they're doing the old, calling the X on him, you got to get somebody over here. And yeah, the seriousness of it really just came washing over everybody at once. And you're going, yeah, you don't want to see this type of time added on at the end of the game, especially with City that can just score on. They could have scored twice in that amount of time that was added on for his injury. But at this point, you got to think more about the player and not only what he'll be able to give us when he comes back. Because, yeah, I don't think it will be a back in the thing this weekend, even though Trent made a miraculous recovery. I don't think it's something like that.
Yeah, it's just hard to tell with the calf. You never know. I mean, it depends on the muscle, I guess, and depends on what happened. But
it can either be something that you can kind of just get buffed out like a bad ding on your car, or you're in trouble for a long time. There's no real middle ground on it, which kind of stinks.
Cosgrove says, thought Jota should have been subbed. He looked so tired after 80 minutes. I mean, the defensive work that Jota did, I mean, how many times did you have Jota clearing the ball inside the box and things like that? I mean, cutting off crosses coming in. I mean, I thought he had a tremendous game. I mean, throughout, obviously, there was a ton of good performances, but it kind of showed, and I want to get your guys' take of that, is Matush, it looked like when there's a lot more focus that we were lacking, we play a whole different game, especially defensively. So is it just a matter of not the injuries, not the depth and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, this team really focusing on what they're doing as opposed to kind of maybe they were going out there thinking this is what we do?
Yeah, and I think part of it is the whole rivalry now with City, and not rivalry from an Everton Liverpool perspective, but more of a great two club perspective where they've been battling each other for the last 5 years. And I feel like a lot of these players, they've been receiving a lot of backlash from fans, from pundits, from everyone, especially when the lineups came out. There were a lot of people that were just, they gave up. How is this team going to be able to keep up with City? We don't understand what's going on. We don't understand how these players are going to work. And I think that it takes that much more effort and focus, like you said, that just coming together. And I think that was a big thing, is they played the way that they know how to play and to the best of their abilities. Now, it's not a sustainable way to play. You can't have this kind of effort for 90 minutes every single game, because we're going to see a bunch of more guys come off with injuries. I feel like they really did put in as much as they could put in. Going back to Kazi's point about Jota being subbed off, that's one of the things, is where there was enough time and there were moments to kill the game too, and I'm sure we can talk about, but it's not a sustainable way to play. But it was incredible to see them come together and get the job done how they wanted to get it done yesterday.
Are you saying it's not sustainable due to the energy put in? Because you got to figure it's going to be doing what we did is going to be a lot easier against Fulham than doing it against City, who does their thing the best.
Sure. I mean, yeah, and that's true. I think it's just one of those things. I don't know if we can expect to get 90 out of Milner every single game and feel like, well, he'll have another great game, one of the best of his life every single time. And so I feel like we just, as long as not everyone doesn't have to have the best game of their life every game, but we can't have 6 of the 11 players have the worst games of their lives every week. I think that's kind of how it's been in the beginning, is we've had a lot of great players have really bad weeks, rather than a lot of good players having just good enough weeks to get by.
Of course, we've managed to sustain the badness over the last month or so, but Cosgrove is making Google work, man. Lovren got stretchered off versus West Brom on December 13, 2015, and then started against Leicester on 26th of December. But yeah, that was Lovren's special, weird human that he was. But and now, he has kind of passed the torch on to Gomez. So like, here, you take all the blame, especially since Trent wasn't there. But so let's talk about this a little bit as well. Klopp's red card, kind of, he wasn't in the best of moods still after the game in the post-match. I don't know if you saw it, Trevor, but they were asking him about like the beer and stuff, and he was having none of it because he had mentioned something like that last week after the Rangers game. I think that, having a beer after a win or something like that, they were like, oh, what kind of beer are you going to have for that? And he was in no mood to just keep joking around. He was like, yeah, not in the mood for that. I think flat out said not in the mood. What do you make of that red card? I mean, the lack of call was obnoxious. But I guess there was a lot of incidents with like refs. I honestly thought he made contact when he came over, because the commentators were talking about him going to the linesman, getting in his face or whatever. And then when he ran and showed the red card, I thought he went and made contact, like physical contact, so he got an automatic red. What do you make of the outburst? Do you take and run with it? It's good in some ways. I'm assuming he's not going in the sideline against West Ham or something like that, but
yeah, I think it's one of those things where it was a situation where he had just seen his best player wrestle to the ground and like hit with an elbow on the ground, and not even the linesman, who was standing a foot away from it, did anything about it. So he was up in arms about it, went over the line. I think he did make contact with the ref as well, and he got justly red card for it and sent to the stands. I don't think there's this overwhelming thing. And if you look at some of these referee things, they're like, oh man, just the abuse and everything. Like, if that was the case and there was abuse that wasn't being dealt with, then he would have just stayed on the sidelines, and they would have gone like, oh, man up, ref, just do whatever you want. And
shit happens.
Everything would just go the way it was. But they, like, the head ref came over immediately and it's like, no, Jurgen, get out of here. And they tried to handle it as best they could for that given situation. And yeah, he probably will have at least 1 or 2 games not on the sidelines. And I think that's enough. It's not as if he came out and like pulled some of these weird situations where you see coaches like tackle referees or just hit him with a forearm shiver because he made a bad call, and you're like, okay, he bumped him. We've seen.
Did he bump him? Okay, when I saw that,
in my head, he bumped him because the ref, like, if you didn't get hit, you wouldn't kind of like look back the way you did, and the way they just all kind of like converged on him, as if the ref immediately just the linesman immediately go, he hit me. And
to be fair, he stopped a good counter doing that, because they had, and that's what he was talking about in the post match, that not only you do that on that side and just not see something very clear and obvious, which you did before the goal. And if it wasn't for the old VAR days, there's multiple fouls before that goal that Haaland makes, and it just happens. These are the moments that you kind of feel like VAR is a good thing maybe after all. But so let's talk about that too. I mean, Pep is very animated too. Like Alan says, he was. I mean, he was on the field at one point,
I
and
think
I don't think he even got a
I
warning
think it
for
was
it
the
unless I missed
contact,
it.
not being out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so and then there was like stuff thrown at him. I guess Matush, like coins and stuff like that, which I just never get the throwing shit onto the field crap. I mean, both these coaches are very animated, very inside the game, and they're top of their craft, if you will. What do you make of that whole ordeal with we were talking about it, there were some rumors about something has happened to the bus again as well. What is it in people that make these stupid decisions?
It's if one person next to you does it, the second person next to you does it, then you do it kind of situation. Especially after a match that you are such a high. You go through this whole 90 plus minutes, and you're on this big adrenaline rush at the end because they just pulled off this incredible win, and now you're looking for something to do. You're looking for ways to celebrate, and the couple idiots do one thing, and everyone thinks it's a good idea, and they just start throwing stuff. And so I think the worst part about all of yesterday was sort of the stains on the game afterwards. So the Jota injury one, and then the throwing of the coins, and then throwing of whatever at the bus. And as Gally's saying as well, alcohol has a big thing to do with it. I know you don't see it on the actual ground, but it's not to say that you don't drink before and then right after. So and that will make you act like the craziest animal, that even though you might be the most calm person, but you get yourself around a group of 30 other people who are also a little bit boozed up, and then things get a little crazy. So, and I think going back to what Trevor was saying, Klopp did bump the line ref, and I feel like there's a camera angle that I saw that he really gets into his face, and I think there's two big points. One, referees need to get better at consistency and decision making. But two, regardless of position, I feel like everyone should be shown respect on and off the pitch. Whether you make a bad decision as a player or a manager, referee, it doesn't mean that you get abused, whether that's verbally or physically. So I don't think the former justifies the latter at all, but there needs to be a little bit of, yes, we like Klopp getting animated and standing up for his players, but you also have to, the line ref is still a human being that deserves a little bit of respect, and not, you just don't go fully in on someone like that, given the nature of who he is and what his position is, if that makes sense.
That I mean, I definitely go with the notion, I guess, as somebody who has not been able to do that on the field myself, maybe that's why I find it a lot harder to judge, because there are times where I know on the field, especially, I understand people on the field getting in that mode who are, I mean, that involved. And we get really, I mean, I know I get really involved just freaking watching it. I was exhausted after the City game. I felt like I played like 3 games. But I think like when you're on the field, it's just, you're being done wrong, if you will. I don't know what it is, but that feeling, I mean, been there, done that, where you kind of lose it. But what do you think, Trevor? I mean, not that I'm like condoning it and like it is. I took it as more like, it is what it is. I mean, if anything, it stopped the counter at that point, and he was probably right for going off of it. I'm just amazed, especially with this Mo thing, that we see it in the NBA and stuff like that, right? Over here, right? In the US, in the press conferences, the coaches constantly set freaking referees up. They'll be like, they don't see this, and they keep talking about it, and then eventually that's. I'm amazed that we don't see that more, like Klopp doing the Phil Jackson and saying shit before suddenly everything gets cold the next game. Or are they afraid that it's going to backfire? They're never going to call anything no more. They already are not. So how much worse can it be?
Yeah, it's that weird line of trying to point stuff out, but also not come off as abrasive, because that could be send the ref's opinion of you in a completely different direction. Because if you come at it like, hey, they've been doing this to my guy all game, and just human nature, you're going to be more hyper focused on these things that just keep getting consistently pointed out to you. But if you come at it from an angle of just you complete moron, how do you not see this over and over and over again? It's going to go in an entire different direction and go, oh, you're just going to sit here and question my intelligence and my integrity and my ability to do my job. Maybe the next time this incident comes and is right in front of me, I'm going to give you the old invisible middle finger and just turn a blind eye to it. And it's zero professionalism across the board, but that's just kind of the way people are when you try to be, and as somebody who's kind of like done very, very limited coaching, and you've seen that kind of just trying to find that middle ground is very tough. And let's just hope that next time those two parties clash in something like that, that cooler heads will prevail and the calls will be made and Jurgen won't completely erupt the way he did.
Yeah, he erupt is a good word for Ali. Alan says, blame Brandon Rodgers. And why the hell not? This is the morning show. That's what we always do. So we'll blame Brandon Rodgers. Trevor brings up a good point over there, Mateusz, that I don't know if you guys saw this documentary on the, was it like Untold or something like that on Netflix about the NBA ref that was into the gambling scheme and stuff like that. And because he talks about over there, which that's why that was swept under the rug, because this probably happens all the time, about like Allen Iverson, for example, talking shit about him, or like, being disrespectful to a ref, the league really not doing anything. And the refs are like, you know what, we'll take care of it. And calling him like traveling every single time that he does it, that he normally they know he gets away with it. Is that what they're afraid of, you think, Mateusz? Like retaliation where, already the numbers, I think Megan has shared it on Discord yesterday that Mo has been fouled every 89 touches over the last 5 seasons. And you look at other numbers like people like Grealish is 22, Kane 24, Sterling 26, Rashford 31. We know what those 4 have in common. But aside from that, I'm sure you can throw some other international names, and there's no way they're even close to Mo.
Yeah. What is the question?
Are they afraid of like even further retaliation, that it does not get brought up as much? I'm just shocked that
the players retaliation
from other players on the team, from like Klopp more in every, like, I don't know, like if that should happen then like an NBA playoffs, it will be before every pre-match and after during every post-match. You just don't get that as much unless they are asked. Or is that something that Premier League really is tight on and they just don't want to enter that zone?
It might be the latter there, where it's one of those things where it's something that they don't want to get into too much. Maybe there just isn't enough support from one side or another to really get into it. And I feel like it could be, I feel like with the NBA, the analogy is good, but sometimes because the play happens so often on both sides, you can see similar thing happen much more often.
Yeah.
There aren't many moments where Mo gets judo tackled to the ground. Hopefully there's not more than one per match. So you can't look at it and go, hey, he keeps getting judo tackled to the ground. Can you do something about this? It was the one time. So I think part of it is there's not as much of the consistent breaking of the rules in football as there is in basketball, at least where you can see it happening more often. Because, if you say, oh, this guy's setting an illegal screen every time he sets a screen, the guy's setting 60 screens a game. So you can kind of look at that a little bit more in depth. So I feel like maybe, and because if we start talking about wanting to see more of that being called, and if that's the stuff that's being missed, then I don't necessarily want to have VAR included in every passage of play, whether there is a goal or not, because that's going to slow the game down even more. And so maybe you bring in an extra, maybe the fourth official, if he sees, I don't know if the fourth official can actually call a foul or not, but maybe if the fourth official sees something that the linesman or the head ref didn't see, maybe he can make a point to say something, because sometimes you bring in an extra referee to place him on some side of the field, part of the field, to be able to be an extra set of eyes for any moment that gets unnoticed. So maybe that's a direction that could be explored.
That's a good question. That's something like I got to look into. I don't think they can affect calls. They're more like in charge of anything past the
Game
line.
management.
Yeah, like can't affect anything inside the line, because you would think they would be like, oh, that was off of him or something like that, because they're closer than the linesman to most things. But I think they're more like deal with anything on the other side of the line. You three take care of the shit inside the line kind of deal. But so like I say, I'm sure we'll analyze the hell out of the game with the boys tonight. But Trevor, what was your one big takeaway from this game yesterday? And how will it kind of play out moving forward?
Well, I think the biggest one was the ability to get up for a big game after something where went wrong at like the last second. And by that, I mean with Kanate kind of just being ruled out, and then you had to really just kind of shoehorn Milner into that right back spot and then have Gomez play as well as he did. And I think a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of just like negativity was brought out from that move, having to kind of just send the ripples through the lineup. But the biggest takeaway positively is that the defense was able to adapt and hold their shape and do whatever they needed to do to make it work. The biggest one on the negative side came in the second half, where I don't think Darwin Nunez knows how to look right.
I think he has to definitely learn to lift the head up. And I think it's a lot psychological on that one too, Mitush. I don't know if you agree, but the fact that it was Holland on the other side,
Yep.
he hears us all the goddamn time. He just wanted to be the one to put the game away, similar to what he did in the Charity Shield or whatever the hell, Community Shield or whatever the hell it's called in the preseason now.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I would definitely agree with, because all season you've been hearing Holland versus Nunez, and people talking about how much of a bust Nunez is for this reason or this reason, and having the lead being up 1-0 and being the guy that ices it to effectively just close the game, and him being the guy. I know that was what was in his head the whole time. Unfortunately, he's the positive of him is that we can see that he's really dangerous and he gets into good spots and it looks like he will get on goal. The downside is just his decision making at the end of all of these great runs is what's really lacking right now. And I don't know if that's just part of, people are saying that it'll take time for him to get used to the system, that it'll take time for the language barrier. But this is football is a game that crosses across the entire world. You know, it bypasses language. You don't need to speak the same language to roll a pass over to the guy that's coming in right next to you. You know, the language is.
What did you say? It's like,
yeah, and I think obviously it's big what ifs, but in my mind, what I'm thinking is, because of this, it snowballs, right? If Nunez passes it over to Salah for the second, he bangs it in, gets a second goal, or when he tries to find Trent in the back post rather than just sliding it off to Fabio a couple minutes after that, then Liverpool goes up 2 or 3-0. Jota never gets hurt because he's never in that position to have to make that play in that moment of the game, because City are then down 2 or 3 goals and they're not pushing. They're still pushing, but then it might be a whole different outcome. And we still have Jota and not worried about how long he's going to be out for. And obviously you can't play that game because who knows what would have actually happened. But I feel like if we just made a couple better decisions towards the end of the game, you take yourself out of the position to have to go through that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to that. And I don't know, that's something, how that will play out. The dude is young as hell. I don't know if the game will slow down for him. He's still probably adjusting to the pace, and you got to figure a City game is probably the fastest a Premier League game gets. So he might be just adjusting to the pace as well, where, it's like playing Madden. I always say, like, old Madden versus pro, you got just a lot more time to make the better decisions compared to freaking, like, going old Madden. It's like the fastest you can get. So I don't know if that's kind of a deal. And the game will, how they say, like, the game is slowing down for him. I don't know. Hopefully that will happen over time, because, yeah, it's a matter of lifting your head up and then obviously then connecting on the pass, because it's good that he saw Trent there at least, but then it was probably a bit too hard, or maybe, not knowing your, teammate as well. He's not going to get there as fast, kind of an ordeal. But what do you make of Nunez's play overall? I mean, if you look at it, Trevor, do you say it's a positive just because of, what Trevor and what Matush was saying, that, he gets into places, you can see when he takes people on, he does make him scared. People are scared of his pace and physicality? Or do you say, man, this guy can pass? I know it's too early to make a judgment, but as of things stand now, where do you stand?
In my little bit of trollery was more that it was just too very, and to knock both instances out of the park of just, you're sitting there and you wanted that second goal so bad, and it was just too absolutely just roll the ball, let it happen type of instances that happened to the same guy. But I agree that he's a guy that is able to kind of cut through the lines very easily with the ball or without, and is going to get his production one way or another, I think. And I think it's a guy that you can really take some positives from, but just those two big instances in that particular match at that particular time really just kind of stood out.
I think the thing that bothered me more is not the fact that he didn't pass. I think it's more, because we've seen Mo not pass. We've seen strikers not pass. These jerks are like that. This is how strikers roll. And, as a defender, you can sometimes take advantage of that, but that's a different story. But I think the thing that's more scary is I personally don't think he saw it. And that's probably more concerning than seeing it and not passing it. I think the first one, he doesn't lift his head early enough when they have that 3-on-1. And I think by the time he does, for him to be able to like kind of turn and take it to the right, he knows he's going to lose it. Either they're going to be off because he's going to take an extra second, or he's going to get blocked off. The second one, I honestly think his eyes are kind of at the goal. He doesn't even see Carvalho the easier pass till afterwards when Carvalho is yelling at him. But before we leave, Matush, let me get your biggest take out of the game as well.
Biggest take out of the game. I feel like this is one of the first times this year where we saw each player working hard. I think especially one of your biggest pain points over the year has been, I don't care if they lose, as long as they're playing hard and playing till the end of the game, and it looks like they're trying to put in as much energy as they can and trying to look like they want to play the game. There have been many moments throughout the year where it just looks like there's a lack of effort or lack of concern of anything, a lack of motivation. And I feel like this is one of the first games where we saw none of that. Everyone was switched on and was ready to kind of just go into war for each other, given the amount of injuries that have gone on. Like Trevor was saying about Konate having that happen. By the way, it looks like he has cute little horns that are coming out of his head. With the scarf. I liked it. It looks good.
He made himself a little Liverpool ribbon.
It's great.
I got to take the focus off the balding somehow.
You're fine. You can just wear hats like us.
Yeah, exactly. Join the crew. It reminds you, he doesn't. Yeah, but Polish Prince says this, but he doesn't need a hat. But that's a different story.
It's just the morning. Yeah, I haven't showered.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't have time to fix his little hair this morning.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Overall, that was my overall take. And Bernardo Silva is still one of the worst people in the league. Those are my takes.
Such a good player, but such a douchebag. And he's top of my list. And finally, I have somebody who's not Brazilian make that list. So I'm happy about that, because
Brazil and Portugal speak the same language. So
yeah, maybe that's the common theme over there. I'm not big on these guys speaking Portuguese, but it is what it is. Well, gentlemen, thanks a lot. We'll be back. Well, I'll be back tonight with the gang for the Monday night podcast, 8 Central Live.
I've got one last little bit of funness for you guys. Since the 9-0 win or loss for Bournemouth, the only team to remain undefeated since that moment is Bournemouth.
Really?
Since City lost yesterday, Bournemouth is the last team to have not lost since that 9-0 thrashing.
If Gally was here, he would give the credit to Parker being gone, but that's
yeah. Maybe that's it.
Well, gentlemen, thanks a lot as always. Like I say, I'll be back tonight on the show. If you have not done also already, head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe over there, American Scouser on YouTube, so you can enter the giveaway. We got 2 weeks left on that one. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tonight. And Trevor, I will see you first thing in the morning tomorrow with the morning coffee. Take care, guys.